Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining me today on the Divine Messages podcast. My name is Karina, and I am a psychic medium out of Calgary, Alberta. I wanted to do an entire episode dedicated towards guilt. It's something that all of us struggle with on a daily basis. And I felt it was really important to share how I've been working through it myself. So, according to the Emotional Guidance Scale, which consists of a list of commonly felt emotions, guilt is one of the lowest vibrational emotions that we can carry. The emotional scale goes like this, from 1 being the highest possible vibration to number 22, which is the absolute lowest. So number 1 is joy, appreciation, empowerment, freedom, and love. Number 2, passion. Number 3, enthusiasm, eagerness, happiness. Number 4, positive expectation, belief. Number 5, optimism. Number 6, hopefulness. Number 7, contentment. Number 8, boredom. Number 9, pessimism. Number 10, frustration, irritation, impatience. Number 11, overwhelmment, feeling overwhelmed. Number 12, disappointment. Number 13, doubt. Number 14, worry. Number 15, blame. Number 16, discouragement. Number 17, anger. Number 18, revenge. Number 19, hatred and rage. Number 20, jealousy. Number 21, insecurity, guilt, unworthiness. Number 22, fear, grief, desperation, despair, and powerlessness. It's been said that the closer we are to joy, the more easily we attract what we want. But when we are in a negative vibration, everything seems to be more difficult to achieve. And it takes so much effort to rise back up to a joyful energy. And if we are at an extreme low and feeling feelings of despair and fear, trying to force yourself to be positive and happy isn't realistic. We can't just say that we are going to think a positive thought and then we instantly have that feeling come over us. I wish it was that easy, but it isn't. We have to slowly rise up and bring ourselves up the scale, one emotion at a time. It takes effort to raise our vibrational levels. We have to feel every single emotion that we have by not stifling our feelings. And the only way to climb back up is to go through it all. The one thing that I've been struggling with lately myself has been guilt. I've been beating myself up because I feel as if I have been spreading myself too thin in every aspect of my life. So let me go back in time a little bit to explain how I got to this place of extreme guilt, especially towards my family. When I first started taking on clients, I was just so excited to help people. My children were just toddlers when this all happened, and I had no idea that my life was going to take a drastic turn and I would be working nonstop doing this work. For the first part of their lives, I was such a dedicated mom and housewife. We moved across Canada when my oldest son was 2 weeks old so that I could stay at home and raise our children. I kept a perfectly clean home. I organized daily outings and play dates. I cooked, and I cooked a lot. I spent my evenings while the boys were in bed searching up recipes to test on my little family. I made everything from scratch. I even made all of their baby food because I wanted them to eat healthy. I spent every single moment with them that I could, and I tried my hardest to be the best mom. I also did any sort of side job that I could in the evenings to help provide for our family. But then as the spiritual world opened up for me, I went on a very deep path of healing my life, and I no longer had the energy to spend all the time that I did in the kitchen happily baking and cooking. I still made the time to entertain the kids every single day, but I found that the more clients I was sent by Spirit to help, the less time I had for cooking. And during that time, I was also dealing with so much trauma that had resurfaced that I was practically drowning. But what I found was that helping others helped me to keep afloat. I began working nonstop doing Reiki and mediumship sessions. And I found that I threw myself into healing others so much that that is where the guilt kicked in. I started to feel like I didn't know how to balance my life. The guilt started to build up as I felt like I could barely get a decent supper on the table anymore. And being honest, over the years there have been many nights where we had to order in because by the time my last client of the day left, everyone was starving and I had to feed them fast. So for someone who prepared every meal from scratch to having to order takeout, my guilt became stronger. There were nights when I did manage to put on a lovely home-cooked meal, and my boys would come down and their eyes would light up and they would say, "Oh, Mom, this looks so good, you cooked." Well, that was like a knife to the heart, I tell you. It killed me to think of how excited they got because I had a home-cooked meal on the table. I mean, I prepared something most nights, but it was nowhere near the home meals that once was. To this day, I truly struggle with guilt. I wonder if 10 years from now my kids will resent me for giving so much to others. Will they feel that I wasn't there enough for them? Will they feel that I wasn't a good enough mom to them because I am so exhausted all the time? And I mean that because the type of exhausted that I feel is intense. I deal with everyone's deepest, darkest secrets, people's intense grief and emotions, and then having to be mom and wife all at the same time. Oh, and did I mention also having to ward off multiple negative spirits and energies? Yeah, that's exhaustion on another level. And yet I wouldn't change it for anything. But I've really had to try hard to work on the guilt that is eroding my soul. I know that it isn't serving me in any way. And as an empath, I replay old situations over and over in my head. I worry about what I've done, what I've said, and how I've acted, especially in my past, but even as much as 1 hour ago. I sometimes wish that I didn't care so much. Maybe if I was cold-hearted, I wouldn't take everything to heart. But I do. I can't help it. It's who I am. But I've learned that I really need to work on the guilt. I truly love, love, love helping people the way that I am guided to. But my children are my greatest worry. Since they were toddlers, I've worked and taught classes out of our home. They have seen so many clients and strangers come through our door. They have had to give up their private space multiple times so that I can teach Reiki for an entire weekend at a time. This is the life that they know. It's what they've grown up with, and all I can do is pray that someday they will understand. I can only pray that they will forgive me for being so exhausted, both physically and mentally, at the end of my day. Because honestly, there have been so many days where I have dealt with such tragic situations, such as parents who have lost their children to suicide, and many, many more heartbreaking situations. And then I've got to try to cry it out, shake it off, and then take them out with their friends, etc., and go back to being mom. Mentally, having to switch back and forth from medium to mom can be so difficult, and yet that's what I have to do. And right there's the guilt. Did I shut it all off enough to be a good mom for my boys? Did I give too much to my clients that I didn't have enough left for my family? The guilt is real. And I know many of you are listening to this episode completely understanding where I'm coming from. We can beat ourselves up over and over because we struggle to find balance in our lives. I think the guilt starts at a very young age and never seems to subside enough. I know how low of a vibration that guilt is, and yet I still have a hard time shaking it off myself. I also think growing up in a very Catholic household contributes greatly to my feelings of guilt. Everything that I did or said in my life came with a strong feeling of guilt. I felt like I was always being a bad person. I could probably write a book all about the major and minor situations that I feel guilty about. I even feel guilty about not having enough time to take care of my physical body. I'm now 49 years old and things are changing rapidly. And I know that I need to take better care of myself because of my boys. They need me to be healthy. I had them later on in life, and I owe them a mother who practices what she preaches. And that is where the guilt once again creeps in. If I didn't work so much and give all of my energy to strangers, I would have so much more to dedicate to my own being, which in turn would benefit my family and everyone else in my life. But I have been really overwhelmed with so much guilt for really just being me and feeling like I have or may fail my children, and that really eats at me. Guilt is just one of those emotions that really isn't going anywhere unless we constantly work at keeping it at bay or fully diminishing it. There are many causes for guilt. It can happen when we feel like we have made a mistake, hurt someone's feelings, or beating ourselves up for everything that we didn't do. There are even ways that guilt can show up as physical symptoms, such as aches and pains in the middle of the back, or even pain or injury to the ankles. Guilt gets stored as negative energy in the body, and it must be released. Other symptoms of guilt can be anxiety, depression, insomnia, avoidance, anger, overeating, undereating, and more. It can be a buildup of emotions that can be downright overwhelming. So what can we do to release guilt? Well, the first thing is to realize that not one single person on the earth is perfect. We are all going to make mistakes and screw up every now and again, especially when it comes to raising children. There is no manual for being a parent. We are not always going to get it right. There isn't even a manual for life at all. We're all just here learning. The second thing is, learn from your past. What do you want to change about yourself and your life? You can always strive to be better than you were yesterday. Let the past be where it needs to be, over and done. Move forward and do as best as you possibly can. The third thing is to stop beating yourself up and being so overly critical. You wouldn't speak to your friend with such negative talk, so why would you treat yourself so poorly? Then try to find something, even if it's just one small thing to be proud of that you have accomplished. This will help to move forward in the right direction. And lastly, the most crucial thing of all, forgive yourself. I know that I have mentioned this in so many episodes, but it really is the most important gift that you could give to yourself. This step is the main one that keeps me afloat. Honestly, whenever I catch myself going down a path of guilt, I remind myself that whatever I feel guilty for, I need to let it go. I can only be better than I was yesterday, and I have to focus on that. Forgiving ourselves is very difficult, but it can be done. We are all just trying to live our lives, and we are going to make choices that will have us questioning ourselves from time to time. That is perfectly okay. So I want to leave you all with this today. Guilt is a part of the past, so leave it there, exactly in the past. I'm working really hard at that myself right now. If you catch yourself feeling overwhelmed with guilt, take a deep breath and ask yourself what you can learn from the situation and move on. Try to focus on something that brings you joy. What lights you up? Now focus on that. Take it one day at a time and know that you are doing the very best that you can. I want to thank you all so much for joining me today on the Divine Messages podcast, and I really hope that you choose to let your past go and let that guilt subside. If you would like to book a reading with me, I can be reached at www.divinemessages.ca or on Instagram at divinemessages333 or at the Divine Messages podcast. Please bear in mind that the perspectives and opinions represented in this podcast are based solely on the Divine Messages interpretations. We can in no way be held responsible for the actions of our followers.